Hello, Namaskar and good evening. A very warm welcome to all our viewers on the second day of our 5 days online training session. You are all watching us on PM eVidya channel number 6 to 12. Viewers, you can also connect with us through our YouTube channel that you all know. It is ncertofficial. So it must be 4 PM on your watch, and regularly from 4 to 5 PM we come up with our special sessions to enhance your understanding about diverse fields and diverse subjects. So as I just informed in the beginning that it is the second day of our online training on digital pedagogy. We started it out yesterday on 25th July, it's 26th of July today, and till 29th of July we'll be here with you conducting these training sessions. CIT NCERT is conducting this 5 days online training on digital pedagogy in collaboration with UNESCO MGIEP India. And yesterday we discussed digital pedagogy, the concept, scope and the policy perspectives. And today it's going to be a fun and activity session for all of you, as our topic is engage learners digitally. Well, you all know that NEP 2020, that is National Education Policy, emphasizes the use and integration of technology to improve the multiple aspects of education for all the students. And for all our viewers, we are coming up with these special sessions so that you can be equipped with all the 4 dimensions of digital pedagogy competence that are aligned with the international standards of digital competencies for educators. And here we are for these 5 days. If you have any of the queries, then feel free to write down to us in the comment section of NCERT Official. Besides, here is a contact number that is also flashing on your screens. So feel free to give us a call at 8800-440-559. As you all know that we are very flexible to take your views, your opinion, whatever you would like to share with us regarding our sessions. So here is a help desk mail ID flashing on your screens. Kindly note this mail ID, that is training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in. As already informed and mentioned for you that we are running these sessions in collaboration with UNESCO MGIEP India. Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development is UNESCO's Category 1 Research Institute, and it focuses on Sustainable Development Goal 4.7. towards education for building peaceful and sustainable societies across the world. Well, before introducing you to our today's panelists, I would just like to take our viewers to the 5 days topics that we are going to discuss. So yesterday it was about the concept, scope and the policy perspective. Today, you'll gain more information about engaging learners digitally. And tomorrow we'll discuss about navigate responsibly. On day 4, that is on 28th of July, we'll take you through design digital learning experience. And on our concluding day, we also have a post-session activity for you, and we'll inform more about that later. So on the 5th day, it will be empower learners using digital assessments. So throughout the 5 days, all your queries, all your questions, all your suggestions are warmly accepted in the comment section of NCERT Official. Well, in these training sessions, we are joined by our esteemed panelists. So we have with us 2 guests in the studio. So let me introduce them to you. In the conversation, yesterday also and today also, we have with us Ms. Shraddha Rawat. Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaste.
Good evening. Welcoming you again for this session. Ma'am is Associate National Project Officer, Teacher Training from UNESCO MGIEP. We welcome you with open arms. Then here we are also joined by Ms. Shreya Tiwari. Namaskar, ma'am. Good evening, a very warm welcome as well. Ma'am is Associate National Project Officer, Teacher Training from UNESCO MGIEP. And of course, your work speak volumes, and UNESCO is a great organization. But still, I would like to take our viewers through your journey before starting our conversation. Please allow me to do so. Shreya ma'am is a curriculum designer and an educational researcher with a specialization on innovative pedagogy for learning for the 21st century. Over the last 16 years, she has specialized in teacher education and school leadership with a policy and practice perspective. Her experience spans from being a facilitator, teacher educator, curriculum developer, and leading large-scale remote learning curriculum implementation across 8 states of India. Besides, she graduated from Lady Shri Ram College for Women, Delhi University, and Tata Institute for Social Sciences, Mumbai, in education. A very warm welcome to our today's session, ma'am.
Thank you.
And as we all know that these sessions are meant to integrate technology in a greater manner so that we could enhance the classroom experiences. So why not begin with it? But I will request you to please provide our viewers a brief recap of our yesterday's session. and also the broader areas about what we are going to discuss today. Please.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Good afternoon, everyone. So very briefly, we yesterday discussed about what digital pedagogy really means. Allow us to walk you through today's agenda. There is a very quick recap on digital pedagogy, what it means, and how do we use it to create a meaningful learning experience. We are also going to today discuss a very important element that decides which digital pedagogy and what tools you wish to use, which is called learner variability. We're going to talk about that for a little bit. There is some notes on reflection, so we would invite your responses on the reflection question that we share. And then we will eventually talk about how do we design relevant, meaningful, engaging experiences for our learners using a framework called CDC. Now that's something you're going to learn about very soon. We will finally end with the Q&A session. We request you to please continue to share your thoughts, comments in the chat box with us. Thank you. So very quickly, what is it that we spoke about yesterday? We discussed that digital pedagogy basically means using technology which is meaningfully integrated and is able to, which is meaningfully integrated into the experience for the learner. It uses the right digital tools for the right purposes for the learners and allows for active engagement and expression for the learners. We also learned yesterday that a lot of this is coming from the brain science, which is the neuroscience, which Dr. Nandini discussed yesterday. So essentially it means that we have different brains in each child which functions differently. And today we're going to talk about how each of that brain needs to be nurtured in the right way, given the right stimulus, so real learning and relevant learning can happen.
All right, I'm going to take it one step forward from there. And on your screen now, we'll show you one image that you may have seen many times, especially in crime serials. Yes. But this is an image of a lot of fingerprints. Now, neuroscience research tells us that the way we learn is as different as our fingerprints. What does this really mean? Take a pause, think about it. For many ages, we've been talking about the idea of learning styles, right? But what is science telling us now? We are understanding that there aren't 3 or 4 different kinds of learning styles, but every child in a classroom has their own different unique ways in which they learn. So there cannot be even 2 people who are learning in the exact same way. It's oversimplification to say that there are 4 types of learning styles. So there's, visual learners, auditory learners. Those theories have all been debunked now. And this is the new research that, is telling us that our learning styles are all very different.
So are you saying, Shraddha, then, that each child has the way our fingerprints, like you just showed, the way our fingerprints are different. Each learner in our classroom has a different learning style.
Absolutely. They have absolutely different learning preferences, and they also change based on what subjects they are learning. So, you can have a different style if you are learning dance versus a different style if I'm learning math, a different style when I'm learning music, to different style when I'm learning a language. So the style, the preferences, needs, requirements, etc. keep changing. And maybe we take a few examples, our viewers may find those useful. So one example that comes to my mind is of, working with, conducting a course that we offer at MGIP, with teachers. And every time I facilitated an online workshop, I know that, there are learners who know so much already, and sometimes, they want to, get to the detail, they want to ask the right question, they want to know more. And some learners who are still struggling to really understand how to, navigate through even Zoom, for example. It's the first time they are on it, they don't know how to raise their hands, etc. So it's quite, different kinds of learners at the same time.
Sure, that's an amazing example about how adults learn. I've also realized in my experience of having worked with children in the field, and I've learned that, the children themselves have a different way of learning. It's not necessary just because my lesson plan says something,
Yeah.
that activity will work for that child. Sometimes, we often also realize, and I'm sure you have faced this as well, Shraddha, that, a child may want to learn mathematics in a different way compared to another child who would want to probably learn it with a more concrete experience.
Yeah.
There will be some times also where a child will be performing probably in a so-called higher level, in a mathematics lesson compared to a music lesson or an arts lesson. So how do we, as educators, as teachers, it becomes a very central problem for us. How do we, for example, in a class of 40 children where there are 40 different brains, how do we as teachers start designing, our experiences, create experiences for our learners which identify this variability that our learners demonstrate, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I hope that the examples that we are sharing both in the digital space with adults, children, students are also triggering, some thoughts. And I want to request the viewers today to take a pause and think really about learner variability. What are the different kinds of, how many different things there are to consider when we, talk about differences amongst learners. So take a pause, think about your own classroom, okay? And think about the strengths and abilities. How do they differ across the learners in your classroom? Think about the supports and the needs that differ. So some people have different needs, others have different needs. Think about their preferences, right? What are the different kinds of preferences they have vis-a-vis learning? Think about their backgrounds, the experiences, where they're coming from, how different are their backgrounds in terms of language, it could be socio-economic profile and so many other ways. So think about these, and we'd love for you to share on chat if you have any, thoughts around how your learners are different, how your classroom is different. So do share them on the chat as well.
I think, before we actually discuss learner variability and identify ways of how to address learner variability, I think there's a very central question that sits in front of us, which is how and why, as an educator, how much do we really know our learners? I may have a class of 50 students, but do I really know them? I would also invite you to please reflect on that. What are the ways in which we can start identifying the variability that exists in our learners? And when I say variability, when Shraddha talks about variability, it does not just mean their backgrounds which are, like facts which we often talk about, but something more deeper. Is there a learner who likes to, share a reflection through a song? Versus a learner who might like to just draw and share an expression? As a teacher, does my classroom management system allows for these learner preferences to come in and take shape even in my lessons? We invite you to share that as well and pause and think of the importance of learner variability, because you realize unless and until we know all our learners, like we said, 40 learners, 40 brains, till we know all our learners and the backgrounds and the strengths that they are coming with, we may not necessarily be able to design an experience which is relevant for each one of them. Having said that, we do also want to recognize that it is not going to be an easy task. It is quite an uphill task, right, Shraddha?
Yeah.
And we want to sort of, just share a few things that we have found are very useful, and they've been documented as case studies across, several researches, and we want to share that with you. So this is, these are a few methods that have been suggested in terms of how as tools that you could use to understand your students, understand your learners. And these can be very simple things. It could be something as basic as a check-in in the morning. It could be something as basic as a morning meeting. It could be just a circle time in the morning or in the afternoon, or at the end of the day. How was the day? What excited you? You might find responses which surprise you. Some child may just realize gymnastics or the sports session was the most fun. And you might realize that for some child, the food time, the midday meal time was most fun. How do we then use this data as an experience that feeds into our classroom practices or our lesson plans? We may also have, we've also seen, just simple ways of celebrating individuality and that coming into your classroom, which means how when as a teacher I know each of my student and their learning preferences, or their variability, then I will be able to celebrate the individuality that exists in each one. It could be done through creating learner profiles. It could be creating through something like Aaj Ki Baat, which basically allows for a child to come into the classroom and share an interesting phenomena that happened in their house.
Of course, and ma'am, with regard to that, viewers have also reflected on the statement that you just mentioned before. Like Dimple Vyas says that learners prefer through different activities like art, music, and from various sources like field work, case study, etc. It has to be more practical rather than theoretical. Absolutely. Then another of our viewers, Banipreet Kaurji, she says that now with technology, children are able to express themselves very well, better in social media via Insta Reels and posts, which could be molded towards constructive learning.
Absolutely, that's such a well thought. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you ma'am for sharing this in the comments box with us. We absolutely agree, and I think what you also said, how certain stimulus needs to be molded is a very important point. That's something that we're going to talk about as well in some time. Just quickly continuing, there are very interesting tools that exist that you could use. They are very simple to use. They are free of cost. They are available online. We've just tried to identify some, and I'm sure there are many, many more that when you start finding, you will find them. Some of the examples are, a very interesting questionnaire called Getting to Know You. That's a questionnaire that a principal, a school leader made it to get to know the students a little better. You have other frameworks like If I Ran the School. So it allows for the management and the teachers to get the lens of the student on how the school is functioning. So, there are a couple of these extra, ideas that we have put in. We will also, you are of course welcome to share this also on the chat box further. But I think the essential question that we are still trying to solve is, given, say you have run these questionnaires, say you have integrated practices of check-ins at the noon, at the morning, at the end of the day, you are becoming more aware, more mindful of how your child is learning. What do you do then? I think that becomes a very important question. What do you think, Shraddha?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's not, first of all, easy to understand different needs, preferences. It's so important for teachers to be mindful and observant and use the right types of tools to understand the diversity amongst learners. But once you've done that, the challenge is how do I address it? And I think everyone watching this must be thinking, okay, where do I go from there? If I know it, I have some sense of how my learners are different, but what do I do with it? And what is the role of technology in addressing those? So let's dive into this, the solutions.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about something that probably all of you would know. You see a few pictures on the screen, right? This is what we are proposing, and believe you me, there are several other ways also that you can use which go beyond what we are suggesting here. This is purely for the purpose of picking up a few examples and sharing those with you in little detail. So here's what we propose. This is something called as the CDC. These are very important. The first idea that creates engagement in our learners. So say you have identified your learners, you've identified the variability that is there in your classroom. Now how do you use this variability to design a meaningful experience? How do you use it to engage your learners? And these are three ways for you to engage them. The first one, which comes from a lot of research literature, and I'm sure you would all agree with us, the first one is offering choice. Now, of choice, you also see a WhatsApp icon in front of it. Allow us to explain this to you in a very simple language. WhatsApp is a simple app that most of us use. clearly it has taken its way into most of our communications, be it personal, be it also official. Now, what about WhatsApp is sticky? I want to draw your attention to a certain feature of this app that allows any consumer, you or us, to use it so effortlessly. So, for example, if I want to send a message, I have the option of typing into the WhatsApp. I also have an option of using an image to show what I want to express. I have another option of using smileys or GIFs, as you may have seen. I also have an option, if it's a long message, to click on the record button and send an audio voice note. Now, this is not about how great WhatsApp is. This is about the several features, the choice that WhatsApp offers me and you as people who are consuming and using that platform. Now, given the choice, I am able to use it as and when I wish to, allowing me the time and the ease of choosing basis my need and my preference, right? What do you think, Shraddha? What do you think about choice and the role that it plays in how sticky a platform gets?
I wouldn't deny that, Shreya. I'm on WhatsApp many hours of the day, I'll admit. But yes, definitely the option of, sending a voice message if I'm driving and I don't have the time, or responding with just an emoji, or writing a long message if there's something important that I want to communicate. The fact that I can respond in the group on privately or on the group, there's so much choice that it offers, and I think that's what makes communication so effective in WhatsApp.
Right.
And it's so engaging.
Right, and maybe that's the reason why it's also becoming so well adopted, right? But I think the essential idea is of how do we build in choices. The second simple daily life example, and we want to bring your attention to the second bit that we're going to discuss, which is the D in the CDC, which is varying the levels of difficulty. Okay, varying the levels. Now, it could be of difficulty, it could be of support. Now, you can also see on the screen, there are two examples that we've put in, which are of games. Now, why are we discussing games? Allow me to talk about that a little bit. You see on the left hand side is an example of a game that I have played called Mahjong Tiles. Now again, I'm going to draw some parallels here, right? So when I started playing, or a Candy Crush, when I started playing it, it gave me a very simple problem to solve, right? And as I progressed, as I learned the rules, it kept increasing its level of difficulty. So as I've learnt more, it kept increasing the difficulty level for me. There are also times, and I'm sure for those of you who play these two games or any other game, there are also prompts. There are also demonstrations which are built in. So it offers me the support as and when I'm playing. When there is also a clear understanding that this person has learned the rules, the support also reduces. Now that's the parallel we want to draw. Using this is a way of engaging. So when I'm playing, the Candy Crush or the Mahjong tiles are able to engage me and meet my learning preference by giving me the support that I need, and also by raising the difficulty level so that I continue to play, right? Now this is not to say clearly that games are the best way, but there is also a certain way in which it allows certain scaffolding for learning to occur.
Right. I think, as you're saying this, I'm also thinking that the same principle of varying levels of difficulty have been used by companies to make games addictive. And what we are trying to do is to use the same principles to make learning more engaging.
Absolutely.
So that's one extreme, like it's so engaging that it's addictive. And we're actually trying to use the same principles in the context of learning. And I think we've all been in learning settings where the content being shared is so easy, and we've been through it so many times that we are like, okay, we are disengaged, right? You're like, okay, let me just check what's happening on WhatsApp.
Absolutely.
And because I already know this. And we've also been in situations where something being taught is so difficult that it just goes above the head, right?
Yeah, and we don't get it at all.
Exactly.
In fact, that's exactly what's the point that, that Deepti ma'am on our chat had talked about, right? How do you use it in a very meaningful way? How do you mold it to have a constructive purpose? And I think the idea why we deliberately picked up examples of WhatsApp or these games is just to draw out this principle, the principle of choice and the principle of varying levels of difficulty and support. And the third final principle we want to quickly talk about is the opportunity to collaborate. This is the third principle that we want to talk about today, and research has proven, and I'm sure your experience has proven, that it is a very effective engagement strategy. You can see in the presentation, players, right? You can see in the last picture, it's a game of football, it seems, and players who don't necessarily have the ball are fully engaged. Now, what are we learning from that? That everyone should play football? No. What we are drawing from that is that engagement strategy, collaboration becomes a very important engagement strategy. And today, as we discuss the CDC, the choice, the varying levels of difficulty and support and collaboration, today we are going to use this opportunity to talk to you about a few tools that are available that you could use for these CDC principles.
Right. I'm going to start by sharing a few examples now, but just before that, just to put things in context and recapitulate what we've been talking, we've spoken about how learners are so different, they are so variable. Therefore, we need to find strategies to engage them differently. And there are many strategies to engage learners of different kinds. Today, we are talking about 3 strategies. So we are going to talk, Shreya was just talking about how offering choice to learners make learning experience more engaging, how varying difficulty levels and varying the level of support makes learning more engaging for learners, and how collaboration, building in collaborative activities makes learning more engaging. What we are going to talk about now is how technology can help us actualize these 3 strategies. Okay, so we're going to talk about, because I'm sure you're all wondering, okay, we understand that, but how do we make it happen in our class? Okay, so that's the one we're going to talk about. Let's talk about the first one. So offering choice on your screen now it's a snapshot from, again, one of the courses that MGIP offers for teachers called the Digital Teacher course. It's a course on digital pedagogy, and this is a snapshot from a page, a unit of the course. Now you can see it's talking about 4 principles of engagement, and within that you can see on top is a podcast. So it's basically, as a learner of the course, I can either listen to the podcast or I can read the content below. There are also images that will help me, sort of remember some of the concepts that are being discussed. So it's offering learners choice. If you are interested in hearing about it, hear. If you want to read about it, right? So that's the kind of choice now that we can also offer to learners in context of content representation. How do we represent our content? Can I offer them videos? Can I offer them reading material? Can I offer them audio recordings, etc.? So because people have different preferences. So if there are those options, learning can be more engaging for everyone. The second example I want to take, again in context of choice, again, is not just the one is how I'm presenting information, but second is how are learners presenting what they already know, what they have learned. So how are we offering them the choice to express what they know? And here on the screen you can see it's a snapshot of a Padlet wall. I think we were talking about Padlet even yesterday because it's such a great tool. We mention it here again. The feature on Padlet that makes it easy to offer choice is the fact that learners can create their assignments their homework in different formats and upload it all on the Padlet wall. So for people who may not know what this tool is, and Padlet is not the only one, there are many kinds of online whiteboards that you can use. So it's basically an online whiteboard where you can upload a file. This could be a video, this could be a slide, it could be images, it could be documents, PDFs, etc. in many formats. So you can give a topic to learners to share what they know, and they can choose what medium they would want to express their learning with. So they can either create a video, image, document, write an essay, etc. and upload it on this kind of digital wall.
Interestingly, I want to also add that, we have seen when we have executed the course and we've run the course with so many teachers, that we have used Padlet as also a collaboration tool. Yeah. We have often found teachers who have from across geographies come together and cross-learn. So a tool as simple as Padlet allows access from different geographies for people to come and cross-learn. So it's actually achieving two of our principles, right? Yeah. It's achieving choice, and it's also achieving a principle of collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a single tool can be used for many different purposes, and that's what we are here to explore. So we are trying to understand what are some of the new tools, but what are the strategies for which we can use several tools. We move to the second thing that we were talking about, and about varying difficulty levels, etc. But before that, how do we even identify the difficulties? You've all a lot of times when I've been a trainer or a teacher, I would ask the question, is the concept clear to everyone? And you don't see people raising their hands because they're hesitant to say we didn't quite get it. Now here's a tool, word cloud, that has the power of anonymity. So if, let's say, I want to gauge the concepts, how much the learners have understood, I can simply ask a question saying what concepts are not clear. You can post it using this link, and then there's a cloud that emerges which shows all the concepts that are not clear. Let's say I want to check how prepared people are feeling for exams. What is the kind of emotion in the class right now vis-a-vis the upcoming exams. I can just say post, how are you feeling right now? How do you feel about the exams coming up? And they can post their emotions, I'm feeling anxious, overwhelmed, unprepared, or excited, prepared, whatever it is, on the word cloud without knowing the names.
Yeah.
So that makes...
Another very interesting thing about word cloud is the fact that the central word, which is the biggest, also signifies that that's most frequent. So that's the beauty. You are not, step one maybe to gather the data and then to analyze it, but word cloud already is analyzing it for you. And it's telling you which is the most prominent emotion or the most prominent, not unclear concept that remains in the class. And that's, as a teacher, it gives you, the opportunity to cater to that as a response and design a learning experience which caters to that emotion or a feeling or a concept, etc.
Right.
I think word cloud therefore also allows for anonymity along with frequency.
Right, absolutely.
Another tool that I would also want to talk about is, for the second principle, support. Like we discussed how games allow us, different varying levels of support and difficulty. This is an example of support. We have often found, and this is something that I know definitely between Shraddha and me, we use a lot as well, something as simple as an online document, a Google document. It allows for, can we have the presentation? Thank you. It allows for a space where a learner and the facilitator are on the same page. And I actually mean it literally, because the teacher is able to also provide feedback on the spot as and when needed. The learner is also able to, along with peers, able to review a document collaboratively, which is again another principle. It allows for several little annotations, as we call it, right? Like highlighting keywords, putting something in boxes, putting in additional links, which allow the learner. For example, we're discussing something about dinosaurs, and then, through a simple document like a Google Doc, a facilitator is able to also put an additional resource in. Just allowing the learner the freedom, the choice, and the power to access additional resource and correct herself when she's learning something. So it allows for a tool which is very dynamic, a space which is very dynamic, allowing for collaboration, allowing for facilitation, and the teacher's role therefore becomes of a facilitator more than just a person who's teaching in the class, right? So that's the third tool we want to talk about, that varies support. Varying difficulty level, and I'm sure a lot of our teachers here would have already used it during the COVID times, and this is something that we have learned even in one of our workshops recently that we conducted. Quizzes. It's just a simple tool which allows for a lot of subject matter quizzes. These are free quizzes. You can choose a difficulty level. As a teacher, you would probably be wondering, if my child is struggling with a certain topic, this learner is struggling with a certain topic, what is the right tool to allow, to give the learner so that the learner can move on and move to the next, progress to the next stage. So quizzes is one tool that encapsulates several of these, and you can choose as and when the child is ready, and the child can take it, the learner can take it when he or she is ready.
Yeah. I think what makes, how quizzes can be used to vary difficulty levels, that's an interesting thing, because by designing quizzes, first of all, quizzes is one of the many free, one of the many platforms that offer free quizzes that are graded. So you can find CBSE Class 9 Geography quizzes that are designed by many teachers. So please also, I would invite viewers to also contribute. Create your quizzes and put them up so other teachers can use them. Yes. But also to then select quizzes of different varying difficulty levels and offer that to learners.
Absolutely.
So the way it offers choice is that learner can take the quiz when they feel ready first, and secondly, that once they finish, let's say grade 1 quiz, they decide on their own that I'm now ready for let's say grade 2, or 1 is too low for my caliber right now, and then let me jump to quiz 3, right? So that's how you can vary the difficulty levels as well.
And in the same context, ma'am, we have got a really nice viewpoint from our viewer, and she says that when teachers use such games or quizzes, then they can take consideration of the learner's level of understanding.
That's so insightful.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm so
Absolutely.
glad that we are already, thinking on those lines.
Learner variability already, aren't
Yes.
we? Absolutely.
And of course,
yes,
pardon me. Of course, we are left by the last 15 minutes in the conversation, and we have few questions from our viewers also. So we'll take them once we complete our content.
Let's
Sure.
quickly, talk about how to use digital tools for collaboration, and then we start taking questions. So let me give you some strategies and some digital tools that can be used for collaboration. Here on the screen are two ideas. One that I really like is social reading, which is how we use technology to read together. So you can use, you can use multiple tools for this. Pro boards, read ups, Google Docs are some of the ideas. But basically the activity that is recommended for this is that learners read at their own time and place. They are reading the same document, but as and when they have the right time or they are in that mental space to read, they add comments and share their reflections on a common document. So that's social reading. That they can all post like, I really like this line, or I like this idea, this is such a profound thought, or I didn't quite understand this part. So they are all, collaboratively reading a document is one way to, otherwise reading can be a fairly individual activity. The second one is joint revisions. So this is another interesting activity that you can try out in your class, that you prepare class notes with blank spaces for information, important information, and share it before the class. So maybe use Google Docs, Zoho Writer, Evernote, or any other tool. Create blank spaces and share the link with your students. Ask them to create notes as the class is going on or after the class. So they are jointly filling in the information gaps and building their common understanding. So those are two ideas. The third one is again, this is a tool called Miro
Whiteboard.
Whiteboard, that again offers brilliant templates for people to collaborate and jointly build their understanding, concepts. You can also vote, so you can jointly take decisions as you're working on this board and creating your assignments. You can brainstorm together, you can chunk your ideas, People can vote, they can write together. So there's a lot that you can do. So,
Interestingly, this is something that we also use at our workplace.
Yeah.
And I want to also share here that, we have taken decisions and we are using it as a strategy and a problem solving document. So yes, so that's about Miro Whiteboard. We recommend you and encourage you to please continue to try these digital tools. Don't just stick to these webinars because, this doesn't involve enough practice. We encourage you to practice as much as possible. Finally, quickly consolidating, I want to bring to attention what we discussed today. First of all, we identified that learners are different. Each learner is like a different way of thinking, and that variability needs to be recognized. When we say that learners are different and there's variability, we need to recognize that there needs to be a mindfulness and an openness in the teacher so that there is a space to notice and acknowledge this variability that exists in your classroom. Third, I talked about how do we use this variability so that you can design meaningful experiences to engage your learners using a framework called the CDC, which means offering choice, varying levels of difficulty and support, and finally, providing spaces for collaboration. And eventually, we want to also conclude by saying that digital pedagogy is about meaningfully integrating each of these tools, looking at your learner, looking at your tools, and integrating them meaningfully so that a meaningful, relevant experience can be created.
Well, I must say that was quite a lot of information for our viewers to grab. And of course, I think that by and large with the time and with this 5 days online training session, you'll get to know more about it. And we are amazed with the beautiful questions, with the beautiful comments that are pouring in the comment section. First of all, thanks a lot. So over 1600 viewers have connected with us for this particular conversation. We still have around 10 to 12 minutes left. So if you have any of the queries, then feel free to write down to us in the comment section of NCRT Official. I'm sure that our guests would be more than happy to take all your queries. So I think it's the time for our Q&A session. Absolutely. So if you allow me, could we proceed with the first question?
We are always waiting for questions.
Of course. That's very great of you. In the context of what you were mentioning about different children having different abilities to learn, we have a question like that. Different children have different ways of learning. Then how can we be really sure that one pedagogical approach would fit the needs of all the students in a classroom of around 50 to 60 students?
Oh, you want to take that? I'll start.
Okay, you start.
I think, the central idea that we were talking about today is the fact that yes, there cannot be one strategy, one method, one resource, or even one kind of assessment that will work for everyone. So first of all, it's great that you notice that and you acknowledge the fact that how can one thing work. I think so far in the education system, we've been designing lesson plans and assessment. It's saying, it's called designing for average. So we think of an average student, not very bright, not very dull. So will this suit an average child? But if you think of a classroom setting, how many people fall in that average category, There are like all kinds of learners. So it's true that one strategy does not work for everyone. And that is why we need to preempt as designers. And this is not easy, okay? But our attempt has to be to design strategies, multiple strategies, and offer choice to learners within the same classroom. And that's why we are saying that, let's say you're teaching a lesson on, maybe we were talking about agriculture yesterday, so talking about the impact of, rainfall on plants. And so therefore, we know that one strategy to give this information will not work. So identify the right resources, which is a video, there's some reading material. In terms of even, exploring these resources, there's an option to either go through it by yourself, because some learners like to do that, but there's also an option to do group work, to explore that concept. So we have to give that kind of choice and accept that learners will learn in different ways. So that's how we design a lesson plan with a lot of choices. I think that
Thank you for putting it appropriately in words for our viewers. I hope you have answered the query. Then another one, we have a concern. There might be a teacher saying that nowadays parents are not allowing children to switch to online mode as they feel that it's more of a distraction rather than a learning process. So in that case, how could we make it to the parents? Like, this is not a distraction, this is the need of the hour.
Sure. I think it's a classic case of this generation also, you know, trying to understand that, and you know, there's enough research that says the relationship with technology is how you define it, right? I think as most teachers would have seen, and we have, and the pandemic has proven that, you know, that not all technology is harmful, not everything is dangerous for the child. Of course, you would need to use some principles, make sure that the child is watching the right thing, the learners are watching age-appropriate content, and there are several well-curated content that is also available. But I do want to urge you that, you know, this is a conversation that you would have to have with the parents and make sure that you understand that there is no right or wrong in this. It does not mean that just by showing a YouTube video, a child will learn everything, because a YouTube video will not replace you, who's a teacher. And similarly, a parent, if busy and is making a child watch a video, is not going to do much wonder, right? But the beauty lies in managing and choosing the right content for the right age, for the right reasons. And not too much and not too little, but using it judiciously for the right purposes helps achieve the learning objective as well.
To just add to that also, you know, as teachers, because we are in this digital age and using technology, it's also become our responsibility to talk about this. So you may know globally, media balance is gaining so much attention, so much so that, you know, Google has created a sort of self-reflection, a page that gets you to analyze how addicted you are to media. Imagine Google making something like that. And I think as teachers, it's so important for us to talk about what media balance is, to help learners to understand, like, are they using technology mindfully or not? To even give those kind of skills is very important, I think.
Yes, and I think also in the age that's coming, we are living in an age of technology. We need to be equipping our children for the future, which means technology is going to be part of who they become. So this is probably the right time to teach judicious use of technology.
And ultimately, we cannot resist it.
Absolutely.
Because it is the near future.
Absolutely. We're already there.
And then again, we have a question with a dilemma of right and wrong. So Shiv Kumarji asks us, there are various tools or applications that are available online. Now ma'am, what should be the criteria in selecting the appropriate tool for a classroom scenario?
That's a wonderful question. And we are hoping that through the 5-day workshop, we will be able to answer this. This is something that we are going to talk about. And thank you, Shiv Kumarji. This is a very important question, because the truth is we are bombarded with apps and information and knowledge, and each one claiming that they are the best. How do we as teachers, how do you as a teacher who's bombarded with so much information choose the right one which is meaningful for you and for your child? That's something we are definitely going to talk about on day 4.
Yeah.
Of course, that is on day 4. I could see the topic that we have is design digital learning experience. So you'll be experiencing more insights regarding the same topic. Ma'am, another one, we have a situation. So one of our teacher asks us that there is one student in my class who is excellent in discussion and does lot of interaction in classroom. But on the other hand, he is very poor in written test. How can I help him?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly what Shraddha was talking about, that, you know, there is no dull, there is no bright. There are just different skill sets. And I love the fact that, you know, you are saying this and you're able to recognize that there is a child whose strength is something else. So maybe now the homework lies with you. How about you designing an assessment system for your class, for that child, which allows for that child to express what she knows or what he knows in the way he or she wants. This, of course, does not mean that, you know, the child doesn't need to read or write. We're not saying that. We're just saying allowing flexibility and choice even within our systems of assessment. Anything you want to add to this?
I just want to say that, you know, while I know there's so many teachers who try to build in that kind of choice when it comes to expressing what they know, But we hear this all the time that, you know, we can't change the board exam system. We can't change the final exam. We don't decide the format. They are all written exam. We have 3 hours. We have these many questions, these many multiple choice. Everything is set in stone. So I think at that point in time, you know, realistically, to think about the so if that's the goal, right? So we need to be able to prepare our learners for the format that they need to express themselves in towards the end, in the summative exams, for instance. So think of that as the goal. So if our goal is to equip learners to be able to write an essay, because that's the way they are going to be assessed finally, then what are the different barriers that they are facing? Maybe some people are struggling with the language, some people are expressing with the flow of thought, so it doesn't come naturally. Some people are struggling with attention. Okay, so there may be different things. So we need to then think about what are those different variability, what are the different kinds of challenges they are all having, and then how can we support them differently. So maybe, you know, I'm sure, I mean, this is just a trigger. If you start thinking on these lines, the ideas will come to you naturally. But we'll also be talking about some of the, you know, how do we design for this kind of learner variability in the 4th session.
And I hope that your views turn out really productive for all our viewers. We are left by the last 2.5 minutes in the conversation. Very quickly, we'll take one last question. Well, I must say, we have 2 questions over here and they're extremely contradictory in nature. Because one of the viewers have asked us that classroom engagement is hard when it comes to students from higher classes or secondary classes because they don't listen or respond whatever I do. Then we have an extremely different contradictory question that students from primary classes, it is very hard for them to understand the digital tools. Now, what are the possible areas where we can navigate and try and help them?
Yeah, I think I agree. These are wonderful questions, and I wish we had more time. You know, this is a question that also came yesterday, if I remember correctly. About a teacher talking about, you know, in primary grades, how much of tools do we really allow for, right? And that's an important question on what is the role that you are playing as a teacher, or what is the kind of experience you're creating for the learner. I think the answer is not that simple, and you would agree with me. There is, you know, a child's own way of learning. There's certain literature from the, you know, constructivist paradigm which tells us something. There's certain literature from the social profile of the child which tells their relationship with technology. All these aspects need to be brought in meaningfully. But I think one thing that we would definitely focus on is the fact that primary children do need more hands-on experiences. They do need more concrete experiences to make sense of the world around them. Having said that, there is also a very fast rate at which they're learning, which means the transition from the real world to the virtual world also needs to be smoothened out. And that's the responsibility that lies with us as teachers, because this is the century which is bombarded with technology, right? So how do we meaningfully start, you know, synchronizing the 2 experiences for a primary grades? I think that needs to be the focus heavily.
Of course, and if students like primary students till now they haven't had their hands-on technology so easy, so you can be the change maker for them.
Absolutely.
Just try and introduce new things, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, we would have loved to continue the conversation, but as time didn't spare us, thank you so much.
We'll meet again.
Of course, sure.
Thanks a lot.
Looking for more beautiful sessions in the future. Thank you so much, Shreya ma'am, for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much.
And thank you again, Shraddha ma'am. It was great having you in this conversation with us and apprising our viewers about how they can engage digitally with technology to enhance the classroom experiences. Thank you to all the viewers. Tomorrow also at the same time we'll be right back and we'll discuss about navigate responsibly. So to know more about that, you have to tune in for our session tomorrow from 4 to 5 p.m. Now it's time to wrap up this particular conversation, but your viewers, the comments, they are really very beautiful. Thanks a lot to all of you. You don't have to go anywhere because our upcoming session is Sahyog, guidance for mental well-being and psychosocial support to all our students watching our sessions out there. So stay connected and keep watching PM eVidya channels. Namaskar.